So Ludwig just released an update on their classic flat-based hardware. And originally I was actually going to do a comparison with my old flat-based hardware, but I just got called for a wedding gig to sub today. So I couldn't find a better way to demo these than taking them straight out the box, putting them in the case, and going right to the gig. What's going on, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Nick Costa here, and in this video I am going to basically be putting the brand new Ludwig classic hardware to the test by taking it straight out the boxes and putting them in my gig bag, going straight to a gig. This is the first time that I am using this hardware. I never had a chance to set it up, adjust the dials on the kick pedal or anything else, but the reason why I am doing this is to show how great and durable this hardware is. I have a wedding gig I was asked to sub today, so I am currently in the process of packing everything up to get ready for that gig. As you can see, I am not dressed in the proper attire, so I have to get changed in 3, 2, 1. Let's hit the road. All right, so now that everything is in the car, and I have a minute because I just have to drive to the gig at this point, let me give you just a little more information about this whole scenario. So as most of you know, the majority of what I do is education, whether that's teaching in public school, writing articles, just focusing on educating about this instrument known as the drum set. Time to time, I do a lot of session work and one-off gigs. A lot of it is theater work, and sometimes situations like this where I get called in to sub for a wedding band. Now you can think wedding band, cover band, corporate band, whatever you want to label it as. At the end of the day, some people think these gigs are really easy because of the fact at the end of the day, all you're doing is just playing pop tunes, playing a lot of familiar tunes. The difference, however, is making sure that you know them well enough so the band doesn't fall apart. Now with this particular gig, they reached out to me about 2 days in advance with the set list, and luckily the set list was already predetermined, which makes it a whole lot easier as far as going in. Now one thing I like to do before I play one of these gigs, however, is listen to every song on the set list, and if there is any song where I say, yeah, I know this song, I've heard it a bunch of times, and I'm listening to it, and all of a sudden I'm hearing specific things I have to be aware of, whether there are certain stops, maybe a certain chorus has a couple extra measures, there's a tag somewhere, specific hits I gotta play, anything like that, I will create a chart that's 1 page long that has the form of the tune, and then I can write just some quick notes around it, so I know maybe certain grooves I have to play, if I have to change up certain things, if there are particular hits the whole band is going to play, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you have that stuff and you are ready to go, because again, you don't want to show up to a gig being like, oh yeah, I know this tune, and then as you're playing, there's a random hit that occurs in the middle of a chorus that you just had no idea about and you just steamroll through it. When you're playing a wedding, not the best idea. Now the reason why I'm telling you this is just to show that this isn't a typical gig for me per se, meaning players that I play with on a regular basis, with songs that I play on a regular basis. I am coming into this as a sub with songs that I have played before, just not with this particular band. So as far as pressure, stress, performance anxiety, regardless of who you are, it's gonna be a little bit higher than your traditional gig. And then I'm gonna throw brand new hardware that I've never touched before on top of it. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, your drum kit is only as good as the hardware that is on it. There's a reason why everybody loves the sound of vintage drums, but most of the time they're not touring with them because the hardware isn't durable enough. Plus, the last thing you want to be concerned about when you're on a gig is whether or not your hardware is going to actually hold up. So this is going to be the perfect test for this stuff. So I'm about 20 minutes away from the gig at this point, and just going to get to the gig. Hopefully traffic's okay, and then we'll go from there. make this a little easier. Kit's finally set up. It's the first time I'm using this hardware. So here, there we go, so it's not warped. Now, as far as the setup that I got, I have one boom stand, two straight stands, the single speed flyer, hi-hat stand, and snare stand. Now here's the best part about this flat-based hardware. Other flat-based hardware, it actually stops when it's completely flat. And the cool thing about this is that you can adjust it and have it so they are on a slight angle if you need to. So if you've ever used flat hardware before, you know sometimes the legs get in the way of one another, which then makes it way more difficult to actually set up the cymbals where you want them to be. In this case, you don't have to worry about it. So like, let's say here with my ride cymbal and crash cymbal stand, I can actually adjust the legs on the crash cymbal to make sure that it goes over top of the ride cymbal ones. And then I am all set to go. Here's another really cool thing. You can see here, there's cutouts, so you can actually flip these leg washers over if needed. So if you need a little extra oomph or a little extra raise, you can do that as well. Oh, now that I'm all set up, it's time to play the waiting game. All right, so no joke. I didn't adjust this pedal at all, straight out the box, right onto the bass drum. That actually feels pretty fantastic. The only thing I have to adjust, the beater is a little bit too far back, which is easy to adjust. Just take drum key, loosen it up right here, and then kind of get that thing to move forward a bit. It's a little too far forward, but just got to adjust that, and then I'm all set. There we go. That's much better. So now I know that beater isn't going to hit me in the foot. All right, back at the house, everything is loaded back inside. And I think it's safe to say after a 4-hour gig, this hardware was phenomenal. There was never a moment during the gig where I had to worry about the cymbal stands collapsing, falling apart, or having to make readjustments on the fly. After I had everything set up to how I felt comfortable, it was set for the rest of the night and nothing moved. Now, if you have used flat-based hardware before, especially for outdoor gigs, you know that from time to time, wind can pick up and the stands can fall over. That didn't happen tonight. So although these stands aren't identified as lightweight per se, that little extra weight compared to other flat-based hardware helped make sure that they stayed grounded and secure and never had to worry about that happening. Now, one thing I really liked about those cymbal stands is that the head portion of it doesn't have teeth to lock the adjustment or the angle of your cymbal, so I could adjust it any which way and have it set up just the way I wanted to. The snare drum stand was the same way. As you know, snare drum stands that have teeth, sometimes it occurs that every time you have those teeth locked in, it either causes the snare to be tilted away from you, as if you were playing in the 1930s, or tilted towards you like you're in an 80s hair metal band. This case, I was able to adjust that snare to be exactly how I wanted it to be to play, making it a lot easier. Additionally, I could rotate the basket 180 degrees, so then once I made a few more adjustments, I had that snare stand set up exactly the way I needed it to be and didn't have to worry about the basket getting in the way of any of the wing nuts to lock the stand in place. Finally, the really big thing that I enjoy about this hardware, again, if you've used flat-based hardware, you know most of the time it's completely flat, which means you have to play a little bit of a puzzle to get them all in the right spot. And 9 times out of 10, you don't get your hardware exactly where you want it to be. That's not the case with this hardware because of the fact that you can go a little bit further and angle them. That way, if you need to, you can have legs going over top of one another like you do a traditional stand. and then you can set up your stands exactly the way you need them to be. Finally, hi-hat stand. Here's a really cool thing. The bottom hat was already on an angle. It wasn't completely flat. And if you are a new drummer or if you get a new stand, not many people know that you have to put that bottom hat on an angle, because if you don't, you could potentially crack your cymbals because air can get trapped between the two cymbals. Additionally, you're not going to get a nice clean chick sound when you close those hi-hats. Since this was already set up, I didn't have to worry about doing that. I just put my hats on it and was ready to go. Finally, that speed flyer pedal. Wow, I was actually holding off on getting one, but that thing is phenomenal. The fact that I was able to take it right out of the box and play it without any adjustments, that has to tell you something, because usually with a bass drum pedal, you're making a few adjustments before you actually get it to feel the way that you want to. Again, the only minor adjustment I had to make was the position of the beater. It was a little too far back, so it was hitting my foot. But again, that was a simple adjustment. Once I got that beater to where I felt comfortable, it was ready to go. Now, if you enjoyed this video of me road testing the new Ludwig Classic hardware, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure to leave a comment in the comment section below if you have any questions on this new hardware. Finally, while you're here, make sure that you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content I upload to the channel, including a more in-depth review of this hardware. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and until next time, see you later.